Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by the two best in the industry in terms of tracking injuries, information, and news. Justin Fan, at JFan from Underdog Fantasy on the NBA side, at Underdog__NBA on Twitter, the best news account in the business, and at Mike Gallagher, our news and depth charts and injuries guru over at Established Run. Gentlemen, 7-game slate in front of us, kind of a light Friday slate. But not light on news because we have to figure out who the hell's playing from trades, what injury situations are going to be impacting the slate. So let's get right to it. Let's start off with teams that are affected by trades and what players would potentially be available tonight. And we can kind of mix in the injury situations on these teams as well. Let's start off with Indiana. Karis LeVert revenge game as Cleveland is coming to town to play Indiana right away. But on Indiana side of the equation, acquired a few new players at the trade deadline. And also have Malcolm Brogdon as questionable once again, like forever and always on the injury report. So Justin, who do you expect to be available for Indiana tonight? And do you have any read on Brogdon?
Yeah, so Carlisle said yesterday that Brogdon was quote unquote close, but didn't have a definitive timetable. So based on that quote, without a definitive timetable, it will lead me to believe that he's probably doubtful to out today, and continue to deal with that lingering Achilles soreness. This would be his 12th missed game in a row. And we're fully expecting Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson to be available to make their debuts. Very iffy on Jalen Smith. That was a more recent trade rather than, Halliburton, Hield, and Tristan. So we'll see on him. I think Halliburton slides right in that starting lineup. Halliburton, Duarte, Brissett, probably Goga at center. And then we'll see if Buddy Hield starts right away. I would think he would. But the Pacers have some pieces. They might throw a curveball at us. Start like a Sykes or a Lance Stevenson or something like that too. So So the big news here under the radar, Torrey Craig got dealt to the Suns, which means I think Brissett is like the starting power forward for this team moving forward. They don't really have that much power forward depth, especially. They have some guys they've been playing at center. Goga. Isaiah Jackson, Tristan Thompson. So I guess Jalen Smith would be the backup power forward, or Terry Taylor, behind Brissett. But so he should be cleared for like 30 minutes, maybe more than that tonight. Really solid role for him. And this is a big matchup. They're playing the Cavs, so they can't afford to play smaller. They're playing Mobley and Jarrett Allen. So, a lot of usage up for grabs here without Domas, LeVert, Miles, and likely Brogdon. Duarte, plus 4% usage rate differential without all those guys on the court, and then Brissett plus 2.5%. So we'll see. I think it should be like pretty decent roles for Halliburton and Hield right away. Interested to see how guys like Sykes, Dwayne Washington, Lance Stevenson kind of mix in with those guys as well.
And then Gallagher, do you think, I see in your depth chart notes talking about how Carlisle said Isaiah Jackson could play some power forward. If Isaiah Jackson is available tonight, he's on the injury report as well. Do you think they would have him and Goga as strict centers, or do you think Isaiah Jackson could get some overlap there at playing at the power forward spot?
Yeah, this quote's from the preseason, actually. I didn't add too many notes. It would be impossible to do that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it makes sense, right? We've seen a lot of teams go big against big teams. We saw P.J. Washington do it against Boston. We've seen a lot of teams go big against the Cavs, too. I forget like the Rockets have done it. A lot of teams have done it. So I think it makes sense, right? I agree with Justin. I think O'Shea's the favorite, who, again, has been used at center, not so much this year compared to Nate Bjorkgren last year. He was in the center a lot, but I think Brissett's a starter because Jackson rolled his ankle really bad.
Yeah.
It's the old go for rebound, land, your foot turns. Those are like the worst ones. So I think he's unlikely. So I'm pretty much on board with everything that Fan had said. With Buddy probably starting if someone sits out, and Halliburton, man, he was really struggling on efficiency on drives. So I think Rick Carlisle is just better at like getting him better shots, and I expect him to really, really have like we've seen Brogdon drive a lot, and I could see Halliburton like totally smashing, even in kind of a bad matchup against the Cavs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what version of Tyrese Halliburton we get, because we saw with the Kings it varied dramatically whether De'Aaron Fox was in the games or not. When Fox was in the games, Halliburton had picked up more of the ball handling role and primary pick and roll stuff as the season has went on. But when Fox was out of the games, it was just a monster role mid-20s usage, low 40s assist rate, just like huge role. And obviously there's the path for that to happen here with Indiana, but it's also going to be playing with a bunch of dudes he hasn't played with at all. So you also wonder how that will factor into, just kind of efficiency and kind of getting used to things for him. I'm interested to see if Terry Taylor is available as well. He's questionable. He's another guy that played well enough that probably earned while they're shorthanded in the front court. So potential 4 minutes here. So yeah, what are your thoughts on him, Justin?
Yeah, I think the Brissett minute ceiling could be really high if Terry Taylor, Jalen Smith, and Isaiah Jackson aren't out. They don't really have that much front court depth. So those guys are like sneaky important just to kind of dictate the ceilings of a guy like Brissett, especially in this matchup. So, I mean, you can't really get away with like sliding Duarte, Lance, or any of these guys down to play the 4. Yeah. So this would be, I mean, those injuries are pretty important, honestly.
Yeah, Torrey Craig was the only player on the roster for the Pacers before that was like a guy that can play 3-4. All their guys are 2-3s. TJ Warren's the other guy that's a 3-4, but we haven't seen TJ Warren all season. So I think it's really important to watch the depth of the bigs here against Cleveland. You had one more thing to add, Mike?
Yeah, just with the Jalen Smith. So that officially went through at like 8:30 Eastern. I usually put like a 24-hour on that. We saw Sabonis was like right up against that 24 when he debuted. So he's like just a little unlikely, as we were kind of saying, which will be interesting because he's been terrible as a 4, and the Suns barely used him there. So I'd be curious to see how Carlisle views him.
Yeah, the different thing is though, like Goga's willing to split out to the 3-point line and drift out, so they could have Jalen play the role of the 5, even though defending 4s and different things like that. So it will be interesting to see how Carlisle uses these guys. Other trade or injury situation rosters. Let's talk about Philadelphia, where they are not going to have James Harden. He's listed as doubtful. It sounds like he's not going to be available this weekend. So they traded Seth Curry. They've been pretty shorthanded. Shake Milton is questionable on the injury report, which I think is low-key kind of an important thing in the absence of James Harden. We've seen Tyrese Maxey's minutes get really, really, really heavy ever since Shake Milton went down, basically. They just didn't trust any of the other ball handlers. They did recall Jaden Springer and Paul Reed from the G League, so they added some depth there. What are your expectations, Justin, in terms of who is available for Philadelphia, and what do things look like in this in-between phase between Seth Curry and James Harden?
Yeah, so I think we'll see Danny Green get the start at the 2 in place of James Harden. And yeah, I mean, this could get really thin pretty quickly if some of these Q guys miss. Maxey, Milton are both questionable. Milton hasn't played since January 3rd, over a month. So I imagine he's very limited, initially if he's clear to play. So I think Green, Korkmaz will have to keep an eye on that. The thing with this, obviously a nut spot for Joel Embiid against this Oklahoma City front court that can't rebound, that can't really do much of anything. But this is a 13.5-point spread, so a little bit of a blowout concern in this spot. But yeah, I think if some of these guys miss, it ends up being like a lot of Korkmaz, a little bit more Danny Green than we're used to. And then maybe they dip into like Isaiah Joe, Charlie Brown Jr., some of these other guys. So we'll have to see. I think this is a spot. I don't know how aggressive you want to be in this spot with that 13.5-point spread, just generally. So yeah, what do you got? Any guys, any plays on this Sixers side that stick out to you in particular?
Me, not really. Just Embiid, because we're going to see if Maxey can go. He's listed with tightness in his hammy. He'd probably see Dort. And Bazley would see Tobias. And I think, Tobias could take advantage. Bazley has been like boom or bust on defensive matchups. We've seen we saw Siakam wreck him the other night. So, but he's been in spots where he's been able to keep guys in check. So a guy like Tobias, I feel like can't really dominate. So I'd probably say it's a subpar matchup, as I was kind of saying in matchups, but like just could be a bad Bazley day.
Yeah, big spot for the MVT of the league.
God.
In terms of that's the most.
Can I add one thing too, man? Because we've been kind of attacking Embiid as a guy to go after because he's been giving up so many big lines. Derek Favors is coming off a 0.0 usage rate. If Favors puts up a big game against Embiid, like you can't vote for that dude.
If Favors goes for 6 points and 8 boards, I'm tweeting.
You need to. just add Daryl Morey. Just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it.
No, but Embiid is clearly the most valuable tweeter in the league. Killed deadline last night. I don't know if he'll ever be the MVP, but he'll always be the MVP for me. We'll see. In terms of the one thing I want to note, I don't have betting splits in front of me, but I have this like narrative in my head that Philadelphia just often plays down the competition because a number of times over the years that I have avoided Philadelphia guys because of blowout risk and different stuff. And then I've looked at the end of the first half, they're like down 7 to some terrible team. And then they end up coming back and winning in the second half. Feels like a lot. So I don't know what the betting splits are on when Philadelphia is double-digit point favorites, but it feels like they feel like one of the teams that really, really plays the competition. And Mike's pulling up the loss to the Wizards.
Back to back, and they lost this game, dude.
OKC generally a team that I blind bet as big underdogs, though it's a little different now without SGA. They're they're pretty bad, and Josh Giddey's on that artificial Sam Presti imposed minutes cap. I will say though that one thing in Embiid's favor is the real lack of front court depth now without Andre Drummond. And I would be a little surprised if Paul Millsap is available to play, just given how long it's been since he's played with that personal issue, aka holding him out until he gets dealt. So without Millsap and Drummond, it becomes Georges Niang, and then you have to dip into one of those G League type guys that never really plays. B-Ball Paul maybe gets in there too. I mean, that's another thing that's in Embiid's favor. Even if it's a blowout, he could see a higher minutes for than usual just because of their lack of options behind them.
Yeah. And I mean, most teams do not have anybody that can reasonably cover Embiid. Oklahoma City, I mean, Favors is going to be able to go as long as he can physically, which isn't very long. And then everybody else behind him is just a disaster. So, I mean, good Lord, if we see freaking Embiid versus Poku minutes out there or something like that tonight, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
There'll probably be a lot of Baisley. I'll add to the Thunder. They've actually been really good on defense. They've been number 5 in half-court defense, but it's mainly because teams have just shot shitty against. Sorry for the bad language in front of the paywall. Poorly from 3, but they've been beat inside. So this is definitely like an Embiid spot is fan led with.
Hornets, we'll talk about them from the trade perspective. They're one of the teams that we actually got clarity on. We got clarity that they expect Montrezl Harrell to be available to play tonight. His role will be interesting. They also noted that they're looking forward to seeing his defensive intensity and that improving things for Charlotte, which is one of the strangest quotes I've ever heard around Montrezl Harrell. But he will immediately step into a role and thicken out that rotation that's been really tight of late. I assume that this is a dock to Mason Plumlee's ceiling for sure. I would assume this is also a dock to PJ Washington's ceiling, that I think it just hits his minutes in a different way and gets him a little bit further away from the basket as well. Justin, what type of minutes expectation do you have for Montrezl Harrell right off the bat for Charlotte, and what do you think he works up to eventually?
Yeah, I think it's probably, maybe like a 25, 23, 26, 22 split initially between him and Mason Plumlee, and then maybe that gets worked up. We saw last game Plumlee and Nick Richards combined for 40 minutes at center. That'll be probably a 48-minute split just down the middle between Harrell and Plumlee now, which hurts, like you said, PJ Washington, who traditionally gets some of those center minutes. So I think we'll see again an 8-man rotation tonight, with the bench being Book Knight sliding into that Ish Smith spot, and then Montrezl Harrell sliding into the Nick Richards spot, and then Washington or Kelly Oubre, whoever doesn't start in that third spot. So I think it'll kind of have a ripple effect a little bit of some of these minute ceilings, especially in that front court. We saw Miles Bridges get all the way up to 39. PJ Washington playing extended stints, got up to 34. Oubre at 36. So even with an 8-man rotation, you kind of have to scale those guys back a little bit. Still good spots for LaMelo Ball. With his minute ceiling, he should still hover around 36, 38. Here, but it looks like Book Knight's fine. He got in a physical little confrontation with Borrego, seemed to have patched things up, and they felt comfortable enough with the situation that they dealt away Ish Smith, and Book Knight is the clear incumbent replacement for him. So I think we'll see a little bit of the same, but some lower minute ceilings for the front court guys with Montrez in the mix.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think ultimately the minutes split between Plumlee and Harrell? What do you think Charlotte would ideally like it to be long term?
I mean, they probably still want to go PJ at the 5. So I mean, Plumlee's minutes could come down pretty hard.
I'm
Probably
thinking like long. I'm thinking like short term. I'm thinking
short
like
term.
24 to 26 for Plumlee, and I'm thinking like 20 to 24 for Harrell. And then I think long term, I think it's going to be more like 22 to 25 for Plumlee, like 20 to 24 for Harrell, and like a few for PJ is kind of what I'm thinking. I think Harrell would have a hard time getting above 25, 26. Look, if they like his defense, good for them. But I mean, I think they're going to find something out different than what they're expecting there, if that's one of the things that they looked into. But that's kind of my feel. And then one small thing I'll note there is the loss of Ish Smith and substituting Bouknight into him, I think is like kind of a low key good thing for LaMelo. Because when Ish is out there, they do let Ish initiate some stuff. A lot of their offense is like dribble handoff around the perimeter and then get into it. So it's like not traditional, just high ball screening and get going as a lot of point guards do. But LaMelo does do a little bit more corner standing when Ish is out there. He will not be doing that with Bouknight out there. So I think LaMelo, the secondary, the RA stuff, the rebounds and assists might be in a little bit better spot in this small sample without Ish. And same thing with Terry Rozier. I think Rozier will also pick up some primary ball handling duties there as well.
Yeah, if I could add just one more thing too, they've been struggling. Like we thought they were all going to light up the Bulls, but each of their last 6 games they've been below their season average in offensive efficiency. They're just over that 6-game span, 98.8. Before that, they were 112.9.
Yeah.
Although very important to note in that 6-game run, Heat, Cavs, Celtics, Clippers, Raptors are pretty good in this Bulls stud game. So they're getting a pretty good matchup here.
The Bulls game was bad. Kobe White played well defensively, one of the best defensive games I've seen him play, but that is not a talented defensive roster.
No, they're like 27th of the last 10 games of defensive efficiency, and you look at that total tonight against Minnesota, it's 241. So it tells you, what the market thinks of their defense right now. Even them holding the Hornets in check recently.
Yeah, the Hornets are going up against the Pistons. The Pistons side of things, Marvin Bagley's not going to be available. We got clarity on that. And then Cade Cunningham is, in this Malcolm Brogdon, De'Aaron Fox stage of questionable for 2 weeks, and we haven't seen him play. So super frustrating to keep having to project him in and then flipping things around each and every night. But second night of a back-to-back here. What are your thoughts on Cade Cunningham's availability? I'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, he got downgraded to doubtful. There's really been no indication he's going to play. He wanted to play in that home game against Dallas, homecoming game, I should say. Didn't go. And I always go back to this quote from October 1st when Dwayne Casey said, hey, mild ankle sprain, very mild ankle sprain, and he needed a month off. So I think there's a chance he waits till the break. I would lean out. We're leaning in just because we have a 75% threshold. So I kind of think he sits. What are you with me on that one, fan?
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if he sat, like got downgraded yesterday to doubtful. Never a good sign. And then secondly, have a back-to-back. I don't see like some drastic improvement during that time. He was still reportedly dealing with some soreness. So especially with the Pistons, they're not really trying to push for any sort of playoff or contention right now. So it's fine just like being more safe and letting him heal up and get to 100%.
Spurs moved on from Derek White in that trade with Boston, picked up Josh Richardson along with Romeo Langford in that spot. I don't know what their intentions are for Josh Richardson and Romeo Langford. I would guess with Richardson, there's the potential for rehabilitation there. He was a pretty interesting prospect back in his Miami days and sort of has fallen off quite a bit in terms of the shine on him. But this is a team that has wings that they want to get looks at. And tonight should be an opportunity because I don't think these guys are going to be cleared. But what are your leans on that, Justin, with regards to the Boston-San Antonio trade?
Yeah, Richardson, Langford won't be available to make their debut. So it'll be, you have Trey Jones, questionable. It could be a very thin backcourt bench if Trey Jones isn't available. You're basically looking at, I'm assuming the starting lineup is DeJounte, Vassell, Keldon, McDermott, and Pirtle. And their bench would be Jones if he's available, Primo, Lonnie Walker, and Zach Collins, right? And if you take Jones out of that, that basically leaves DeJounte as their really only primary ball handler they have. And we know, without Derek White, it's DeJounte's season. I mean, the splits without White have been through the roof. In full games without White, DeJounte 31% usage rate, 44% assist rate. I think his assist prop right now is like 10.5, which is like insane. But it is what he's been doing in those games without White. So some other beneficiaries without White actually in those full games. Doug McDermott has seen a really big jump in usage, 7.5% differential, and he's actually been the biggest winner in terms of DraftKings points per minute in those full games without White. So another guy to kind of keep an eye on. But DeJounte season in full effect, especially if Trey Jones is out.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just put some stats behind that too. The last 15 Spurs games, the splits are 27, 9, and 12 per 36 for DeJounte without Derek White. Just absurd stats. And you mentioned that Trey Jones could be crazy. Devin Vassell started each of the last 2 games at shooting guard without Derek White when Derek White sat. So completely agree that he starts. And yeah, that was interesting on Doug McDermott. I'm like never want to play McDermott. And also kind of a bad matchup for Keldon. I don't really like him in the spot against John Collins.
Yeah, and you guys, you degenerates, sickos in our prop channel, we're betting DeJounte Murray alt lines first thing in the morning.
Dude, yeah.
It was so funny. You guys, I think you and Amico were looking at, I guess the line was like plus 450 or something for a 20-point triple double. And I was like, guys, that line like seems like tough, like not a great line to bet at. And you guys are like, nope, we're in, we're going. And you're like laddering up like DeJounte Murray lines, and I'm like, okay, here we go.
No, I got DeJounte at FanDuel plus 25 points, plus 8 boards, plus 12 dimes, like plus 800. I'm trying to figure out where
seems
I can
like short. That like I feel like that should be like 1,200. I don't know. My math is getting in the way of your fun as usual. I know.
There's no math when it comes to DeJounte Murray without Derek White. Just firing. Just
pretty much. I mean, I quickly on the trade deadline show like referenced the idea that San Antonio might sit DeJounte down the stretch, and Gallagher just like went dead cold on me. Like I thought I had to like send someone over to revive him for the rest of the show. So yeah,
help over here.
All right, other injury situations to keep an eye on tonight. For the Bulls, kind of a big one with Ayo Dosunmu, concussion protocol listed as questionable. Obviously, in the absence of Dosunmu, without Lonzo Ball, without Alex Caruso, we expected the Bulls defense to really struggle last game against Charlotte. They played reasonably well. The big beneficiary was Kobe White, who was just out on the floor a ton in the absence, got up to 38 minutes. He had been coming off the bench when Dosunmu was healthy. Do we think Dosunmu plays tonight, and does he immediately go back to his starting role? Justin, I'll start with you.
The signs are positive for Dosunmu. So he was seen participating in a full contact scrimmage this morning, which seems to indicate that he's been fully cleared out of that concussion protocol, and he should be ready to go. So I would lean towards him maybe being more on the probable side. It's always possible they may be cautious and hold him out, but the indications are like he's good to go, taking contact and all that stuff. So I would expect him to start as usual. Kobe White go back to the bench, Malcolm Hill back out of the rotation, Troy Brown Jr. scaled back, and kind of what we've been seeing, in the past, games when Ayo's been healthy. So yeah, their point of attack, they actually have a good defender now. No disrespect to Kobe White, he did good work last game, but big upgrade to Ayo.
Yeah,
I'll add just some background on that too. He apparently suffered the injury in Philly, played in the Phoenix game, felt symptoms after that, and then they ruled him out for concussion. So yeah, it sounded pretty minor. It's not like a thing where you saw him get hurt in the game and he's like walking off woozy. So yeah, sounds pretty minor. So I'm just back feeling a bit more.
All right, the Bulls are playing the Wolves. Minnesota has everybody listed questionable. Patrick Beverley, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Naz Reid, Taurean Prince, Josh Okogie. So Mike, I'll start with you, just in terms of like likelihood of, or players that I would say that you're most concerned about not being able to play tonight. I know Anthony Edwards had the commentary after last game or the game before where he was like, I've been hurt for a month, which thank you for the information. So who are you most worried about with Minnesota on the side of the questionable tags tonight?
I mean, Beverly, always, just because he's old and I always have minutes concerns. So he's always going to be number one on when we see a lot of these Q tags. Naz Reid's injury is aggravated. It looked like he kind of got banged up, went to the bench, went in the hallway for a little bit, and then kind of came back out. looked okay. So mild concern there, but yeah, I think and really everyone else, these are just injuries they've been listing them with. Like this is getting listed with a shin contusion for D'Angelo. Like, I doubt that he aggravated it. It seems very unlikely. So they should all be pretty good.
Certainly the total suggests they're all going to be good with a 240 total.
But the Wolves PR is my new nemesis. It used to be the Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis. This is just getting to a point where they're just like procedurally listing guys questionable, which is outrageous. I'm actually not concerned about any of these guys missing.
Okay.
Finch said afterward that Beverly being out had nothing to do with the re-aggravation or new injury. It just was managing his workload in a back-to-back. So fully expect him to play. I think Nas, what Mike said, is probably the only concern here, but fully expecting all these guys to play. Like you said, Ant said it was the first night in like a month and a half that he felt good. So all these guys should be totally good to go.
Good to hear.
I'll add to it with Fan. How do you feel about the Timberwolves tweets about their food menu for the PR people?
Dude,
I love those.
If I ever worked as a beat writer, I would apply for the Wolves job. The Wolves media menu is just outrageous. It's like a 5-star I gotta
find one. I'm trying to find one right now. I can't find it. There's one.
Yeah, I would just live in the media room and just be
here. You go
the entire game.
Oops, I put the wrong one. Okay, I got one of the media meals right here. Ugh, there, I'm slow. There, look at that.
Yeah,
that menu right there.
Yeah,
I mean, my God, and you get to watch the Wolves.
I could go for some cavatelli and herb cream and parmesan. I'll be right. Take that. That'll be my dinner for tonight. I'll take that happily.
Yeah, I always chuckle whatever because I have them in my notifications. And I see like Wolves, is it like, what is it? But they're always like, it sounds good.
It's the bone-in pork chops. That's what's nothing questionable about that tonight. The rest of the
I feel like I should
very questionable.
A lot of meat on the bone for jokes to make on that too. So I may have to maybe Fan and I have a little bit on that.
Yeah.
All right, Orlando, Jalen Suggs questionable tonight. Achilles issues again. So what do we think on Jalen Suggs' availability?
Yeah, we did some digging. Gallagher sent me this video, and our guy JJ dug and found the video earlier of him getting interviewed at morning shoot around, and he basically said like 3 different types of way that he'll be fine, that he's good to go. So unless he's just like this is just like player speak, he should be back in there.
Yeah.
There's a back-to-back. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
The people in chat are still celebrating Gallagher's 2% Lowry triple-double flag plant last night.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to know that never happens without Jordan Poole not starting. Because if Gallagher has first flag plant last night, he's taking Siakam, and the Lowry thing never happened. So thanks, Steve Kerr.
Well, yeah, you're probably right.
And the Warriors.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's my third. The little NBA fantasy put this out. Like, shout out to me. I think I hit like 3 of these value of the nights on plants.
Tell me you're betting Kyle Lowry props at least. Like,
baby.
Laddering up
Lowry. I got lucky yesterday though. I had a 14-10 and he got it. 14-10 and a win and 3 threes. It was like plus 350 or something.
Plus
I was like, all right, let's go.
How was that only?
It wasn't. Yeah, maybe more. I forget what it was, but it wasn't too high.
This is nuts. These single game
parlays. It was only like 8. It was only like 8 assists.
Be careful out there. Do I need to add the number hotline to
I gotta find out
the injury report analysis show?
Dude, but I hate it, and they always have like this little thing at the top telling me like you're addicted to gambling.
Tell you who to call. Yeah.
And it always puts you like where all the bets are and stuff. Like, stop doing that.
Yeah. I think if you start laddering up like Trey Mann overs, then we're just gonna auto dial. Like, we're just gonna go right to it. All right.
Like, I've hit running to my horn. I'm running really like picking maps where the point guards have a huge advantage. I just boost them up like Steph yesterday, and it's been running pretty good, man. So
good to hear. All right, Utah, Rudy Gobert. He's supposed to return earlier this week. Hasn't happened yet. Did get some practice time in earlier this week. Listed as questionable today. It sounds like it's going to go down to the wire again. Game time decision. Is that your reading of the tea leaves here, Justin?
Yeah, I think he has a good shot at returning. We'll keep that. We'll keep an eye on that. I don't really have a strong lean. I think. Yeah. You have any sort of lean on Gobert, Mike?
Yeah, just wise, based on the report from Tim McMahon last week, he's saying he could hopefully return for the game. That was on Monday, so you're talking 2 games later. Make you think he's got a pretty good chance to play.
Yeah, they've been very cautious with him just generally. So like to not have it linger, to not have it aggravate. Yeah. So I think this like beyond the initial time though, they've definitely gone like beyond what they should have just to be safe. So I think him being upgraded is a good sign.
And then 2 new point guard out situations I just want to talk about in terms of how you guys think the rotation shakes out. First in Denver, one we've seen before with Monty Morris. He's out. I think Facundo Campazzo just slides into that starting spot, but they do have some guard depth there with Bones Highland playing better of late. Highland had surpassed Campazzo in the rotation before. But I think Campazzo, they just go right back to him as the starter, Bones off the bench. Austin Rivers can fill in some minutes there as well. Is that your guys' lean as well, Mike?
Am I crazy for thinking that Rivers might start for Monty?
Yeah, they could do that too. I mean, they can just have Barton be the ball handler as well.
Yeah, if you look at like the splits, Barton's assist rate has gone like pretty high, like the differential without in the games without Monte. So I'm just like, Facu's been out of the rotation pretty much for the last 4 games. Just like he had some garbage time a couple games ago, but so it's like, I don't think Bones is starting at all. Like Bones is coming off the bench.
Yeah.
He's like definitely coming off the bench. So I would like they have Bryn Forbes now.
That's the other piece of this is that they have the other shooting component to pair in the second unit. So I think there's a decent chance of
Devon Reed a little bit more on the wing too. Like he got some minutes last game. So I would lean towards Rivers starting, but it wouldn't surprise me if they dust off Facu for.
Like, what are your thoughts, Mike, in terms of the Denver guard rotation here?
Yeah, just thinking matchup wise, you're gonna want like Malone's obsessed with Facu's defense, and he loves like see ball pressures, right? I think like if they run switches and stuff on Jalen and Jason, I think he'd rather have Facu out there than anybody else. That's kind of why I'm leaving Facu Campazzo. Don't really need the offense either, and a little extra passing, maybe help takes a little bit of pressure off Jokic. So I'm kind of leaning Facu there. But I agree with everything you guys said. Malone has gone, Barton at the point guard spot in years past too. So all that stuff's definitely on the table.
Yeah, would definitely say that Barton is way more interesting to me if it's not Facu. Just because Facu is a little bit more ball dominant. You can't really play him off ball very much. I still think they'd run a bunch of stuff with Barton, but the floor would be spread way, way better with Austin Rivers out there than with Facu.
Barton 11% assist rate differential in full games that Monty has missed this season. Aaron Gordon 6.5% usage rate differential. He's seen a bump too. But I will say this is as brutal of a matchup as it gets against the Celtics defense that's been the best in the league for a while now. They're like 96 defensive rating over the last 10 games. So just a brutal matchup overall. So I would be a little careful there attacking the Celtics defense the way they look right now.
Yeah, Tuesday night I was settling into my seats at Music Man to see Hugh Jackman live and looked at the score and saw 28-2 Boston ahead of Brooklyn in the first quarter and said, oh boy, that's not a score you usually see in professional basketball very frequently. Last point guard situation I want to touch on.
Your man gets Mr. Chocolate Milk, I think.
I was trying to get our crew to bet Horford over 2.5 assists, and they were not waving me. So I rode it for plus 120 in 7 minutes. It was victory lapping in the Slack chat. Always a good feeling.
I am getting dunked on like crazy by Dink this week. When I'm like, what is it? Like the guys who like beat everybody else, but like Dink's wrecking me.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the weather gets a little warmer out here, I'm just walking around with a Nerf hoop and just like finding the people of New York and going at them. I'm ready to go. Last point guard situation I want to touch on is Cleveland without Darius Garland. I think this one is pretty interesting, actually, just because they did not play Karis LeVert. They played Karis LeVert last game off the bench, and then they always played him with a true point guard next to him, whether it was Rondo or whether it was Garland. I think the thing that makes the most sense, and Gallagher's got some starters jersey intel here, would be to slide Karis LeVert just into that starting lineup. But it's a super small sample, and they basically played him as a true wing last game. So I have some reservations about it. But Mike, what are your thoughts on LeVert starting in place of Garland tonight? Do you think that's the way they go?
Yeah, they only had 13 minutes of overlap with him and Garland, and it was ugly. You know me, I love 1 game samples, but 12% usage rate. So, I mean, yeah, the matchup's too good. If he starts it on the wing or whatever, I think he starts at point guard, and I think he's going to wreck. Pacers lost all their perimeter defenders. Chris Duarte is not a good defender, opinion. Whoever else they're going to throw at him is really bad. So, full-on revenge season. A lot of lobs to Jared Allen. Really, really poor rim protection. A lot of drives. We saw him driving like almost 30 times a game over like a 3-game stretch before things kind of went south for a little bit. So it's like total smash if he starts here. So I'm probably going to ladder LeVert then, man. I mean, I got to start getting my plus 200s for the 38-point plus and 15 assists.
Let's start
climbing. Just start climbing. Yeah, LeVert probably won't. I actually haven't gotten to looking at DFS prices yet, but he was $9K last time out. So unless he got adjusted really aggressively, he's probably still going to be priced at a point that he's not going to be heavily owned, which would be kind of interesting, just because we've seen Garland be worth like 9K while in this role. So if they let LeVert just have Garland's role, there's the potential for LeVert to fill that immediately. Any other news stuff that I missed that you guys want to cover? Justin, I'll start with you.
I think we got pretty much everything. Let me see. Yeah, I think we hit everything. What do you see anything, Mike? That we
no, I don't think so.
All right. Nope. Let's get into
Oh no, I know who we forgot. Lindy Waters III.
Oh my gosh.
Or for the Thunder, are you ready for some of that?
I thought I was out of this season. Our Slack chat has spent all morning deriving backstories for Lindy Waters. So I think Lindy Waters is a 75-year-old retiree on the Upper West Side who just signed with the Thunder. Someone else said he was a award-winning news anchor, Lindy Waters.
I like that. I like that.
Here's our new guy. I said he was a 1920s gangster because Lindy Waters, you'd be sleeping with the fishes if you mess with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
It was pretty bad.
I thought I was done.
Clap called it.
There's no way that's a real person.
Dude, so good.
It looks like one of those like computer generated.
Yes, like a creative
what the future of humanity looks like. Yeah. Yeah. But shout out to Lindy Waters. Congratulations on us.
What if he goes ham tonight, man? He's gonna get garbage time. Imagine if he drops like.
I don't know. I don't want to. All I know is I don't want to create a baseline for this guy. I thought I was out. I thought I was out of this season. Just
can we
this is bringing me back to PTSD of health and safety protocols.
Can we get a Lindy Waters? Can we get a Lindy Waters flag plant, please?
I'll flag plant. He's gonna have a career high tonight. He's got a pretty easy number to beat, and it's probably gonna be garbage time.
All right, that'll do it. For myself, for Justin Fan, for Mike Gallagher. Make sure to follow all of Justin Fan's work over at underdog__NBA. Best news handle in the business, giving you all the information that you need to bet props, to play DFS, and to be prepared for watching the games tonight. Mike Gallagher and myself will be behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight, breaking down the 7-game slate from a DFS perspective. Join us over there if you've got the Established Run Premium NBA DFS subscription. If not, at least hit subscribe to our YouTube page and support us in that way, and make sure you get notifications whenever we go live. We will be back Monday at 2 o'clock Eastern with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Have a good weekend, everybody.